Ever feel like life is just kind of happening to you?
Yeah.
Going through the motions without a real sense of direction.
It's a common feeling.
Yeah. So what if I told you there's a way to take the wheel, like actually chart a course toward a fulfilling life, a really fulfilling life?
Well, that's a compelling idea. Where do we start?
Well, we're diving into that today with Mortimer J. Adler's The Time of Our Lives.
Okay.
And don't worry, our AI narrator will be guiding us, so you can just sit back and absorb all this wisdom. This deep dive is like a shortcut to Adler's thought-provoking philosophy. He explores how to craft a life that isn't just good, but great, truly great.
A worthwhile endeavor, for sure.
So Adler, he starts off by posing this really simple question.
Okay.
How can I make a good life for myself? It's something we all grapple with.
Consciously or not, yeah.
Right. But Adler, he isn't talking about that like fleeting happiness. He's after something much deeper, something more lasting.
He's looking for enduring fulfillment, not just a temporary high.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he uses this powerful analogy of a blueprint. Like an architect needs a plan before building a house.
Makes sense.
Adler suggests we need a blueprint for our lives.
Okay, I'm following.
But how can you even have a blueprint when so much feels out of your control,
That's the real challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Life throws those curveballs. We don't get to choose our starting point, and unexpected things always pop up and kind of shake things up.
Yeah.
But you see, within those constraints, there's a powerful truth.
Okay.
We can choose how we respond to those external things, and that's where our blueprint comes in.
So it's like a roadmap for navigating the stuff we can't control.
Exactly. It helps us deal with those challenges, and it guides our choices, helps us make choices that actually match our vision of a good life.
So where do we even begin creating this blueprint? Like, what's the first step?
Well, Adler suggests we take a close look at how we're spending our time. He breaks it down into 4 categories. Sleep, which is essential. Play, which can be just for fun or have a deeper meaning.
What?
And then there's work.
Yeah.
But he divides work into 2 types. Subsistence work, which is, what we do to earn a living, and leisure work. And that's about activities that help us grow as people.
This leisure work concept, it's really intriguing. Can you unpack that a little?
Yeah, absolutely. Think about it like this. What are some things you do that aren't just for fun or necessity? Things that actually help you become a better, more well-rounded person.
I see.
Things like reading, maybe learning a new skill, having those good conversations, maybe pursuing something creative. All of these are leisure work. And Adler, he argues that making time for these activities is essential for a truly fulfilling life. They nourish our minds and souls, even if they don't directly put money in our pockets.
So it's not just finding a job you enjoy, but also like seeking out things that enrich you, even if it's not your typical work.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Adler uses the example of choosing between 2 jobs. One that pays a lot but is soul-crushing, and another that pays less but is deeply fulfilling. The classic dilemma.
Right. Many of us face this at some point. How do we weigh financial security against genuine happiness? Like, what should make us decide? Well, Adler would say there are 2 key ingredients for making choices that lead to long-term fulfillment: fortitude and temperance. Those are some old-school virtues, right? Not ones we hear much about these days.
True. Fortitude is the strength to face those challenges head-on, to persevere even when things are tough.
Like mental and emotional resilience, right, to weather the storms.
Exactly. And temperance is about self-control, resisting those temptations to overindulge. Finding balance and moderation, even when it's hard.
So in that job example, fortitude might help you deal with the uncertainty of taking the less lucrative path, while temperance would help you resist chasing that bigger paycheck at the expense of, your well-being.
Perfectly put. These virtues help us choose what's truly good for us, even if it involves some sacrifice in the short term. They keep us from getting swept away by instant gratification and guide us toward choices that align with our long-term vision of a good life.
That makes a lot of sense. But how do we develop these virtues? Are we just born with them, or can we, cultivate them?
Adler believed we develop virtues like fortitude and temperance through practice and making them habits. It's like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. Our character strengthens when we consistently make choices that need us to use those virtues.
So it's not like something you're born with, it's something you work on.
Exactly. It's about actively working on yourself, making those choices that build up those inner strengths.
I like that.
And that leads to Adler's bigger point about philosophy. He says we need a good moral compass to figure out life and make choices that lead to real happiness.
But philosophy can be so abstract and kind of intimidating. How do we connect these big ideas to our everyday life?
Adler thought philosophy should be practical, relevant to our lives. He wasn't into all that high-minded stuff. He wanted to help people actually apply these insights to their daily lives.
So how do we do that? Can you give us an example?
Sure, let's look at naturalism when it comes to ethics. Naturalism means basing our ideas of good and bad on what we see in nature.
So instead of just going with our gut feeling or our emotions, we look to the natural world for guidance.
Exactly. For example, we can see that living things do well when they have what they need, right?
Like food, water, shelter, all that.
Exactly. So going after those things is good because it's in line with our natural drive to survive and be well.
Makes sense. But how does that change the choices we make?
Well, it suggests that a good life is one that's in tune with those natural needs. Taking care of your health, having those close relationships, always wanting to learn, doing things that bring you joy and make you feel good.
It's not about denying our natural desires, it's about channeling them the right way.
Exactly. And this brings us right back to Adler's question. How can I make a good life for myself? A good life isn't just about having the most fun and avoiding pain. It's about living in a way that fits us as thinking, social beings.
But people are so different. Can there really be a single blueprint for a good life that works for everyone?
Adler believed that even with all our differences, we share basic human needs.
Oh.
We need to feel loved and valued, to have a purpose, feel like we belong, experience joy.
So a truly good life is not a selfish life. It has to consider other people.
Right. Adler connects our pursuit of happiness to natural rights, those things we are entitled to just because we're human.
Interesting.
He argued a good society upholds these rights for everyone, creating a place where everyone can chase a good life.
So it's not just about you being happy, it's about making a world where everyone has that chance.
Exactly. Adler believed that a good life is linked to how well others are doing. We can't be truly happy alone. We need community and a sense of shared purpose.
It makes you think about how we often put individual success and money above everything else. Does that go against Adler's idea?
It's definitely worth considering. Adler gives us ways to evaluate a society based on how well it helps everyone pursue happiness. He wants us to ask ourselves some hard questions. Does our culture value the right things? Do we prioritize what's in our minds over just stuff? Do we have time for leisure and learning? Do we feel a sense of community?
Those are some tough questions.
And this is where his analysis of the changes in the 20th century gets really interesting. He argues that while we've made progress in things like health and how much stuff we have, those things haven't necessarily made life better.
So we have more and live longer, but are we happier?
That's the key question. He thinks the changes in the 20th century shifted our values. We focus more on stuff and individual success, and we might be losing sight of things that matter more.
Like we're so busy trying to get ahead that we forget about things that make us feel connected and fulfilled.
Exactly. And that leads to a problem Adler highlights. The people criticizing modern society, even if they're pointing to real problems, often don't understand what a good life really is.
They're rebelling against the system, but they don't know what to replace it with.
Yeah, it's like they see the cracks in the foundation, but don't have a better blueprint for a new one.
Exactly. So where do we even start? How do we build a world that supports a good life for everyone, like a truly good life?
Well, Adler was big on education, but not just job training. He meant real education, developing the whole person. He thought education should make us think critically, foster a love of learning, and help us understand those basic human needs we've been talking about.
It's about giving people the tools, not just to get by, but to actually shape their lives and the world around them.
Exactly. And it's more than just formal schooling. We need a society that values learning, good relationships, and a balanced life. A world where learning and being a good person are just as important as being successful, in the traditional sense.
Makes me think of that quote from Pericles. He praised Athenian culture for putting the mind above wealth, giving people time for leisure and learning, and having deep respect for virtue and excellence.
Perfect example. Those ideas are timeless. We may not have a perfect society, but it's inspiring to think about what we can achieve, both individually and together, to get closer to that ideal.
This has been a really eye-opening look at Adler's work. It's given me a lot to think about for my own life and for the kind of world I want to be a part of.
That's what Adler wanted, to make us think and empower us to live more intentionally. His philosophy gives us a framework for making choices that lead to a fulfilling life, a life that's rooted in our shared humanity and our desire to be happy.
For anyone wanting to explore these ideas more, we highly recommend checking out The Time of Our Lives. We've got a link to buy the book in the show notes.
Absolutely. It's well worth the read.
And we want to hear your thoughts. What stood out to you? Share your insights, subscribe for more from Mindful Moments, and tell a friend who might be on a similar journey.
Remember, as Adler said, seeking happiness is not just a right, it could also be a responsibility. What do we owe to ourselves and to each other in this pursuit? Something to ponder as you navigate the time of your lives.